Hello, my name is Elle,
I'm Cody.
and this is the Horror Corner podcast, which we have been away from for a few weeks by accident. Um, yeah, first I had depression, and then
I had depression.
and you had depression, and then I was nauseous at some point. I don't know. It was a mess, but we're here, and it's great. Yay. Um,
There's
you
a
know,
fruit fly
Cody?
still happening.
Oh, the fruit fly's still fucking
Ugh.
there. God damn it. Sorry, dude.
It is what
Sorry
it
about
is.
it.
If you hear me clambering around out here, that's probably what I'm trying to do.
Trying to get that fruit fly. We have so many fruit flies in our house right now because Hollis loves to forage. They've
Mm.
been making delicious jams and teas, but this also means that we just have like baskets of fruit on our kitchen counter 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have some fruit flies, but it's good. Yeah. I gotta say, Cody, not a lot has happened to me
Really?
other than depression, COVID, the usual, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Susan is having her 13th birthday this month.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna throw her a bark mitzvah.
Nice. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's gonna be so good. Oh, wonderful.
Working on it 2 weeks ago, and then you were
Yeah,
telling me that you were working on it last week, and then you were working on it this week, and I'm like,
and
that's
then
a lot of
today.
things happening. All right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so full disclosure, my notes are 5 pages long.
Okay. I am slacking.
I mean, I'm I I'm just okay. So I'm like just not now not slacking is how I view it.
I see.
Kind of
Okay.
is like
Fair
I'm
enough.
like making up for all the times where I woke up at 10 a.m. and I wrote my notes by the time we recorded at 4 p.m. So like yeah, but I will take credit. I did try really hard on this story. Um,
Well, I'm excited.
yeah, me too. How was your life
My life?
going? Yeah,
Well, depression.
yeah. Mhm.
Uh,
You seem to be on alternating schedules, so
yeah.
that yeah.
I've also got a little bit of smoke in here because I left my window open last night like an idiot.
Oh, I saw my window open. Fuck.
Um,
Yeah.
so I've just been hanging out with a mask on in my own room. It's also left my throat a little bit scratchy, all the smoke and the stuff,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I don't know how responsive I'll be this entire episode. I will try to be as responsive, but who knows at this point.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I recorded a video last night and I was just like, I don't know if I can do this
Yeah.
tomorrow. Like, record a podcast and record another video tomorrow because my voice is just not having it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like at this point, what matters is that we are doing the episode finally, and then
Regardless of construction happening in the
hopefully,
background.
Oh my god, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they've been doing it all day. I don't know what it is that's been happening since
I don't know who they
9 a.m.
are. I don't
this
know what they're
morning.
here for.
God damn it.
I love it.
And it's so smoky and gross. And, anyways,
Yikes.
we're
Well,
having a time.
what would you do for a Klondike bar?
What would I do for a Klondike bar? Um, hmm. I'm
Well, see
thinking
here, I
so
was
hard
really
about
hoping
this.
you would like go upstairs and try to get rid of those construction people.
Yeah,
Take care of
I
them if you
would.
know what I mean.
Okay,
Wink, wink.
wink, wink. Yeah, what I would do for a Klondike bar would be I would. Um, I literally can't think of anything because I'm so nervous about having the right answer. I'm trying really hard to think of something funny, but like all I can think about is like I would let the owner of Klondike pet Susan a few times if he
Okay.
wanted to snuggle her, and then I would do that for a Klondike bar. I would take Susan all the way to the headquarters of Klondike to bribe them with Susan for a Klondike bar.
That's a fair response. I'll take it. Legit. Legit.
Okay, cool.
Valid response.
Yeah.
But now I want to ask you what would you do for a Dunbar armored truck?
A Dunbar armored truck. Probably nothing because I don't have a driver's license.
Okay. Also valid.
And parking is really expensive at my apartment complex.
And
So
what if I told you that that Dunbar armored truck had almost $19 million in it?
I would um, break into the White House and I would write offensive words about Donald Trump on all of the mirrors.
Okay. I'm down. I would support you in that.
Cool.
But it doesn't have to be
Thanks.
that difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
You
I
can
know. I'm just thinking of like bizarre things. I like can't think of anything, so I'm just saying the first words that come to my head. Oh my
yeah.
god.
You
I
could
feel
just
like a
break
weirdo.
into Dunbar armored facilities and
Oh yeah.
steal $19 million. That would be the easy way out, I guess you could say. If you're prepared to break into the White House and do some things.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, they can't say no to a disabled person, right?
well, I think they can. And I think they would, is the
Lots of
problem.
people say no to a disabled
Yeah.
person.
I can't tell which window I'm in. Here we go. Here we
Okay,
go.
so
This
what
fruit
is this
fly.
fucking truck
Damn it.
about? Oh,
Hi. Sorry.
did you get it? Are you okay? Is the fruit fly okay?
Unfortunately.
Okay. Well, hopefully soon you'll get it. You'll get him good.
Yes. So
Oh,
today I'm going to tell you about one of the largest bank heists in U.S. history.
oh, hell yes. Oh, I love a good bank heist
Oh yeah. It's I don't want to
because
say
it
it's
doesn't
yeah.
hurt anyone except rich people, right? Is that true? Is that how bank heists work?
Um, in most cases, yes. In this case, not really.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
because they didn't. It's not any one person's money.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into it. I'll let you
Okay.
know.
Okay. Okay.
The Dunbar armored robbery is one of the largest bank heists slash like just heists in general. That involves like cash in the United States at
Okay.
$18.9 million. This took place in 1997, so in today's money, that would be almost 30 million.
Holy shit.
So, what would you do for $30 million?
Um.
Still break into the White House?
No, I would probably. Okay, so the thing is that all I can think of are sex things right now that I would
Oh,
do, but I don't really want to like share what I'm thinking about that. So let's
you know what?
just
Go wild.
say that I would, I would let able-bodied men fetishize my body for that money if I could then exploit them later, if that
Okay,
makes sense.
okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Um,
You're asking me a lot of questions about money, and I was just talking to my therapist about how anxious of a topic money
oh, I'm
is
sorry.
for me. No, no, I'm just like, maybe that's why I can't think of any normal person responses. Hey, Cody, and what would you do for that much money?
I didn't come prepared today. Um,
I'm not prepared either.
I came prepared with an opener, but not a conversation.
I was like thinking about it, like, what would I give up for
Exactly.
$30 million?
It's like, if I pay you $5, will you eat this chip? Sort of thing. Like, will you
Yeah.
eat this chip for $5? Yes. Will you eat this chip off the ground of a bus for $5? Yes. Would you eat an entire tub of peanut butter that someone has bathed in for $30 million? Yes.
Oh my God, Cody. Really? I mean,
It's $30 million, dude.
I would maybe do that. Although it does bring me comfort that none of these scenarios would ever actually happen. So I
That's the
can safely
problem. Like,
say that
okay.
um
I don't. I would do a lot of things for $30 million. One of them would be breaking into a armored facility, I guess, Dunbar armored facility, just like these six people did in 1997. So in 1997, a man named Alan Pace worked for Dunbar Armored in Los Angeles, California, as a safety inspector, aka just like the one who's in charge of making sure that everything like safety involved is up to state slash like federal regulations.
okay.
So he's the one who's in charge of making sure that all the cameras work, all the locks work, all the stuff works.
Mhm.
Safety inspector.
Sounds like a pretty big job for one guy in a really important bank.
Yeah, I mean, like, not only
Mhm.
that, you'd really want to, like, hire someone you can trust.
Yeah, that too. That too.
Considering that they have complete access to how your entire security system works.
Yeah.
Like,
Damn.
you should probably trust this person with your life with $30 million. While he worked there, he took pictures of all the security systems. He timed all the cameras to like know how to avoid them. He took note of security staff shifts and like when they took their breaks, when they took their lunch, when they like went home. All the rotations of all the security staff. And most importantly, he documented the armored truck depot where all the trucks like parked and loaded and unloaded and all that jazz.
Hmm.
Yeah, so he took all these notes, and then on September 12th, 1997, he recruited five of his childhood friends and robbed the Dunbar armored facility.
Nice.
Surprise, surprise.
Wow. Yeah.
So Alan Pace, Eric Damon Boyd, Eugene Lamar Hale Jr., Freddie Lynn McCrary Jr., Terry Wayne Brown Sr., and Thomas Lee Johnson went to a house party in Long Beach that Friday night, just long enough for people to see their faces and make sure that they, had an alibi and everything.
Hmm.
And around midnight, the group left, went to one of their houses to change their clothes, put on masks, and pick up a U-Haul that they had rented. They arrived at
I'm
the.
sorry.
Yeah.
I just had a thought. When he said they went home to change and to put on masks, that just sounds so like so mundane now because like you would go home to change your clothes and put on a new mask
Oh, yes.
for like
Well,
pandemic related things. And like, oh, and then I realized like, oh wait, it's a bank heist mask,
yeah, they're definitely
not
putting on
a
like ski
not a
masks, like
COVID
full on
mask.
ski masks and like all black, like heist
Oh
clothing,
god.
yeah. So they arrived at the depot shortly after midnight, gaining access to the facility with Alan's key and knowledge, like all of his knowledge of the building. They were able to make their way through without any
Maneuver.
like glitches,
Mhm.
difficulty. I'm having difficulty. Um,
Sorry,
they didn't,
bud.
and they made their way to the break room because remember Alan knew like all the shifts of the security staff and like when they're going to take their break and when they're taking their lunch, and so
Mhm.
they went into the break room, so, like made the staff and stuff get up and like go up against the wall and like they terrorized them. They're like, give us the keys to the vault room and like all that stuff and like you know probably pointed guns at them, just being real mean, big
Being
bullies.
really mean, threatening them with death. They're
I
so
was really trying to
mean.
come up with like other threats, and I'm like, I'm not a mean person. I don't know what to say here. This is. I've been doing this podcast for how long, and I can't think of a way to torture someone. Um. Anyways, they tied them up, and the group took the key to the vault area and used bolt cutters to get through the chains and padlocks in the metal cages where the cash was held. And then they loaded all the cash onto carts and transported them out to the rented U-Haul waiting outside the loading zone. Most of the cash was $20 bills bundled in Dunbar armored cash straps destined for automated banking machines. So they weren't going to the bank or anything. They were just going to like the ATMs outside
Mhm.
around the LA area. And basically this comes out to about $950,000 $20 bills, if my math is correct.
Wait, so okay, and $950,000 bills, not dollars.
It's $950,000 $20 bills comes out to about $18.9 million.
Wow,
Yes,
a lot
so
of
they
money.
really needed to
Fuck.
like they needed the truck basically,
Yeah,
because I mean like
yeah.
that's a lot of bills.
That's a lot of fucking bills.
If
Yeah.
they had gotten them in bigger denominations, they might not have needed a truck, but
Hmm.
uh, I'm trying to think of like Alan knew basically which bags in the vaults had the largest denominations and which ones were non-sequential, like the serial numbers. So like they
Hmm.
were harder to track if they weren't
Okay.
sequential, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I guess most ATMs like the highest denomination they can give you is 20.
Hmm.
Which like I mean I was mostly just thinking like why wouldn't they go for something that's like got like $100 bills, but I guess if they only
Yeah.
it's not like a bank, they just keep money that's distributed. They're not like they don't have all the different denominations, I guess,
Hmm.
in the building.
Hmm.
Especially like on a single night.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, basically like Alan knew which bags held the highest denominations and non-sequential bills, which would help them keep a low profile. And then after they loaded all of this into the truck, they smashed the security cameras, took the tapes, and then drove back to the person's house to change back into their party clothes and drove back to the party in Long Beach. As if nothing had happened.
What? What did they do at the U-Haul?
They dropped it off at the person's house.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying that they like drove the U-Haul to the party.
No, they definitely left it at the apartment.
Okay,
That would
gotcha.
definitely kind of
I'm like, that would not.
ruin their alibi slash like give them an alibi. Like,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
saw your U-Haul. A
Uh,
little bit sus.
what's in there? Are you moving?
Yeah.
Where are you moving to?
Yeah, so they didn't bring the U-Haul with them to the party, but police
Mhm.
did quickly find out that it was an inside job. It was pretty clear because there wasn't any evidence of forced entry, and they knew exactly where to go, what to take, and like how to avoid security measures. So police were like,
Mhm.
it wasn't any of the security guards here. Upon like investigation, they figured it out. Like it wasn't any of the security guards on duty, but it was
Mhm.
definitely somebody that either previously worked here or works here currently.
Mhm.
Someone definitely let someone in, basically.
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah.
the police investigated Pace. Uh, sorry, what's his name? Alan. The police investigated Alan. Sorry, I wrote his last name. I got confused.
It's
This is
okay.
the only place I put his last name because I knew I would get confused. They investigated Alan, but they couldn't find anything. There was no evidence that he was involved, no sign of the money. And when they searched the Dunbar facility, all they found was a broken tail light from something,
Mhm.
but
Okay.
it didn't match any of the Dunbar armored trucks. So they sent it off to the FBI labs forensic place in Washington, where they found that it belonged to a 14-foot truck, typically used or typically rented from places like U-Haul. After that, nothing like that's really all they found. They couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Like nothing came of that clue or anything. Like it didn't lead them to anything. So the group of friends basically stayed under the radar for about 2 years until one of
Oh
them,
damn.
Eugene Lamar Hill Jr., paid his real estate broker with a stack of bills tied with a Dunbar armored currency strap.
Ooh, bad move.
Yes, and even though the real estate broker involved here was Eugene's friend,
Mhm.
he turned Eugene in. Can you imagine? What a
Dang.
shitty friend.
I know.
So
Yeah. What? Wow. Yeah.
Eugene's friend went to the police, and the police arrested Eugene and searched him. I don't know if that was the order in which they did that, but
Hmm.
the police found that he was carrying a similar stack of cash on his person, all $20 bills neatly tied together with a jumbo armored strap. He confessed and ratted out his friends. So clearly, none of these people
Yikes.
are very tight-lipped.
All
Like,
snitches. God
I
damn
wouldn't want to be
it.
friends with any of them.
Yeah.
Can't keep a freaking
Yeah.
secret. So Eugene had actually been the one to rent the U-Haul, and then they pulled the heist, and then he returned it the next day. So it
Mm.
also had turned out that Alan, who worked at the facility and had gained them access, so it was indeed, in fact, a inside job. But he had also he had actually been fired the day before
Oh.
for suspicious activity.
Hmm.
I bet you can guess what that was. Looking around the
Yeah.
depot, looking at all the security, checking out the loading zone. They're like, it looks a little bit suspicious. You should probably not work here anymore. I mean, there's probably more to it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it was definitely a factor.
Yeah. So, okay, so they, cleared him at first, though, right? They were
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, he has nothing. But,
Yeah.
why did they clear him?
I mean, someone looking around, isn't. I don't think that's evidence enough. They can't get you on it for just, being
Yeah.
curious about how the security system works, especially if you're the
Yeah.
safety inspector.
But, the fact that it was bad enough for them to fire him. And then the day
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, I don't have a
Yeah.
lot of details about that, which is why I'm, really wondering, what was he doing? Because
Hmm.
poking around, checking out security measures, as a safety inspector, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But was there something else that he tried to do? Because they obviously didn't make him turn in his key, or maybe he made a
Yeah.
copy. I don't know.
Yeah,
There
that's
wasn't a
really
lot of
true.
information on
Hmm.
that part of things. But in the end, Alan Pace was sentenced to 24 years in prison in 2001, and he was ordered to pay back the $18.9 million. Eric Damon Boyd was sentenced to 17 years in prison after his father testified on the stand that Eric had laundered about $177,000 through his father's business.
Wow.
Other members of the group got sentences between 8 and 10 years, and there's still over $10 million unaccounted for.
Hmm. Yikes.
Some of the money
Dang.
that they stole that may or may not be accounted for, I feel like some of the money that they ended up finding, because 177,000 out of 18.9 million is
Hmm.
not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So some of that went to that, some of that went to new businesses that some of them started to launder it.
Hmm.
Some of it went to gambling or investing in real estate, like Eugene was trying to do.
Hmm.
But nobody has done anything. None of them have given up the location as to where the rest of the money is.
Okay. Dang.
And it's been how long at this point? 19 years since
Um.
they were sentenced, and
Yeah.
they Alan's almost out,
Oh, hey.
right? 19.
I
He's
guess. Yeah.
got 19 out of 24 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
Eric's got Eric should be out of prison at this point. He's only sentenced to 17, and the others should be out as well. I feel a little bit more comfortable about them being out because, I mean, like I said, I don't know if they had guns or anything that they were holding to the
Yeah.
security staff at the time, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a violent crime. So
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
feel a little bit
It
more
was just
comfortable.
yeah. Yeah. It was threatening, but their explicit goal wasn't to get cash, not
Harm
to hurt
anybody. Yeah, they
anyone.
weren't trying to harm anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang. Well, I would. What would you do if you found that money?
If I found $10 million, I would buy a large house and adopt a lot of dogs.
Yeah. I don't want that many dogs under my care or animals. I just want to be able to provide for other people and other things.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. Yeah.
I used to want to be a vet, and then I
Oh yeah.
realized people's pets' lives would be in my hands on the table. And I was
Yeah.
like, I cannot.
Cannot
I'm
do
sorry.
that.
I'm quitting the vet track. My
Oh.
dreams to go to UC Davis out the window. No thanks. And people are like, you can
Oh.
still go to UC Davis. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I wanted to go there for the vet program. Like, I was very determined. And then I realized
Yeah.
I would have to do surgery as, like, part of training. Like, you can't avoid surgery. Like, that's part of your, like, basic training, basically.
Okay.
I mean, it's
So,
obviously, like, more advanced basic training. But, like,
yeah. But, like, you
you have
gotta
to
do
do
it.
surgeries. And I'm just like, I can't.
No. Yeah. No thanks.
Even, like, spaying and neutering, I'm just like, that is someone's life on
Baby.
the table. Not just the dog
Yeah.
or cat's life, it is someone's life.
Yeah. I know. Susan's 13th birthday has been coming up, right? And so I've been thinking a lot about her mortality.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do when she dies? Like, am I just gonna have to, like, yeet myself off a bridge or something? I don't
No!
know. I mean, probably not. That's actually a Christine quote from when she was talking about what she would do if Geo dies. And now I recognize that plus my statement that I wouldn't need to get anything to hit a button that let me not exist. So
Mm.
I realize how that sounds. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm just going to be devastated when Susan's time comes.
Yeah, I
Which
know.
will
I'm gonna
not.
go see my dog in a couple months, and I'm
Oh,
very excited.
at home
Mm-hmm.
in California. Nice.
Get to walk her in the morning. Hopefully,
Yay.
it's not smoky and red Mars weather by then.
Yeah.
But
Oh boy. I know it's so gross. We haven't been able to go out on a walk since it's been so smoky. I don't want to hurt her little old lady lungs.
my parents have been letting my dog out in the backyard, and I'm like,
Just like to
excuse
hang
me?
out back there,
Yeah, apparently
or
she's just like running around in the backyard, and I'm like, parents, stop.
what? My weather app says unhealthy air quality. Do not let my
Right, like
dog.
this was literally 2 days ago, and they sent me a picture, and the sky was fucking red, and it's like 10:30 in the morning,
Oh
and I'm like,
no.
you're letting the dog out in this climate, in this economy?
Really? What?
Like, what are you
How
doing?
dare you?
Like, you're literally wearing masks, like N95 masks inside, and you're letting the dog outside.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That goddamn windstorm. Wait, so is it still the windstorm, or is it just that there's more fires in our area?
The last couple of days, it's been from Eastern Washington, the fires in Eastern
Hmm.
Washington. Today
Okay.
specifically, apparently, it's all the stuff blowing up from Oregon.
God. The United States is literally on fire.
I
What the
know.
fuck?
Just this side.
Yeah. Policy back. Policy
Cool.
Matthew.
So I'm really excited about your story.
Okay. Yeah.
How did we
Well.
come back from gender reveal fires?
Um.
They literally could have just like this is a signal flare to the moon. Like, can
Yeah.
you imagine if your like significant other was on the moon when you found out the gender of your baby or the sex of your baby, and you're like, how am I supposed to signal to them what the sex of our baby is going to be? Oh, I know. I'll just light a giant ass wildfire.
Oh my god. I.
Burn down
I.
half a continent. Like, Jesus.
I really hope that their kid ends up being trans,
Same.
so that
I think
it's
about that
like,
all the
hey,
time.
this is a sign from God that y'all are fucking dumb shits,
I think about that all
and
the
we're
time.
rejecting the binary system. So thanks, mom and dad. Okay, so my story. I guess we can segue
Sagoo.
into it. Segue.
Mm.
um, we can do that by saying that my story is also about white people doing dumb shit.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Um, okay, so I told you that I've been like going hard on the research for this story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because The story that I have for this week is a little bit different. It's a haunted place, but we're actually gonna spend most of the time debunking some bunk.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, so and like yeah, I so also this is like take four of me writing my notes. I've rewritten my notes four times now, so and I'm still not totally confident about it. But have you've heard of the term like bad science, bad medicine, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So okay, it's like I think we all kind of know what it means probably, but like I want to apply it to this context and say, boy, did I come across some bad folklore in the past
Okay.
few weeks. Like basically just messing up the truth through logical fallacies and presenting it as factual. Um, and Yeah, so my story this week is going to be North Head Lighthouse. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Okay. And yeah, when I say that, it's like the story, it's like what was my story before Zach Bagans covered it in a miniseries. And then I saw that episode and went in a totally different direction.
I
So,
see.
anyways, here's kind of what happened. So, North Head Lighthouse is a it's probably haunted. It's probably actually haunted in a Washington state park called Cape Disappointment. It's on
What?
yeah yeah it's a national park called Cape
I
Disappointment,
love it. I
and
need to
it's
go
very
there.
fitting.
Just
It's
make a
very
statue of
fitting.
myself and be like, "This is the
Yeah,
embodiment of this park."
and like
Disappointment.
yeah, basically. The location is absolutely gorgeous. So, like, it's a lighthouse on. How did they phrase it? It's like well, Cape Disappointment is a headland on the extreme southwestern part of Washington at the mouth of the Columbia River.
I see.
So it's about like a 3.5 hour drive from Seattle
That sounds right.
southeast, sorry, southwest to Cape Disappointment. So it's like really close to us.
Mhm.
And like Lighthouse is great. It has a lot of history. It's probably haunted. And Zach covers it in a miniseries called The Graveyard of the Pacific, because Cape Disappointment is also called the Graveyard of the Pacific because for reasons we will soon learn, it is a very dangerous place to be sailing. Um, and there have been like over 2,000 shipwrecks in this area.
I feel like any place that's called the Cape of something.
Cape of Disappointment, sorry, Cape. Yeah,
Yeah, like I'm anything with Cape in the name stresses me out because they're usually not
mhm.
a good time.
They're usually really dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Why
okay,
don't they just call
so
them danger tips?
they should honestly. If I remember correctly, I don't think I wrote it down, but the reason that it's named Cape Disappointment is because there's a French explorer who came and he thought that he was like on the other side of the Columbia River, but then he wasn't. So he named it Case Disappointment because he was disappointed that he wasn't in the place that he thought he was in.
I mean, me too, but like,
But like that's not the reason it should be
jeez.
called Cape Disappointment because people die there. Um yeah, so there's that whole thing. And then North Head Lighthouse, it doesn't actually seem to have been a very well known place until Ghost Adventures covered it in 2018.
Okay.
Um, and then, so in comes like the second facet of the story that just like totally threw me in a different research direction. Was that Zach Bagel Bites in this episode. He decided to create a very racist and highly fabricated spin on the story of the lighthouse and the surrounding area, by targeting the Chinook Nation. So, like, what he did was he did the whole all of this bad stuff happens here because the land is cursed.
What he did was disappointing.
Exactly. He constantly disappoints me. I cannot tell you how much, how often. Um, yeah, but so he pulled this shit and was like, "Oh, the reason that it's haunted is because of this, like Indian curse and dark energy on the land." That is not substantiated at all. Anyways, so like as soon as he said that, I like stopped listening to the episode and I like went on my computer and I'm like, okay, I know that him calling these people the Chinook Indians can't be right. So for my research, I need to go look up like what they actually are called so that I can do that right. And then I just found a lot of things that that the Chinook people specifically have had to go through that just make everything that Zach does incredibly more offensive than it needs to be. So,
Disappointment.
yeah. Um,
That's
so
the
like
title for your half. Just disappointment.
disappointment. Yeah.
Disappointment.
So basically, um, he evoked the racist trope of the cursed native land, and it's just so bad. It was so bad that all I could think about was like how much this episode fucks things up in such a short amount of time and going so far out of bounds. And like it was I was gonna just tell the story about North Head Lighthouse, but then Zach used the Chinook Nation to bolster his narrative about it, so now I'm like, okay, I gotta disrupt this narrative if I'm gonna still tell the story of the lighthouse. So if I'm gonna say it concisely, this is the story of the North Head Lighthouse and making bagel bites into an example of white people being
Disappointments.
dumbasses. Disappointments, yeah. And honestly, I think this makes the story a lot more interesting
Okay.
because North Head Lighthouse, it doesn't have a lot of written paranormal history or like ghost stories. It's kind of sparse in the in terms of like the actual like lore that it has, which I think is why Zach felt called to kind of like make it more spooky
Mm.
for his episode.
Mm-hmm.
But he did that at the expense of a lot of people. Um, so first, I kind of want to establish an overview of the lighthouse to explain what we do know about it and the potential hauntings. I also want to give you some highlights of Zach's theories. I don't really know what to call them. Like, is it like white opinions that none of us asked for? Like, not so sneaky dodging of responsibility to tell a story as it actually happened, or like they're not even theories. It's just stupid. Then I also want to debunk some bunk and talk about the Chinooks people's actual history, and then I want to give some I don't know shout outs to people who are doing really cool things
Okay.
in terms of like justice for indigenous people.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of my intro.
Okay.
It's also the shortest intro that I've been able to write in 4 drafts, so we are in for the long haul, folks.
All right.
Okay. So, like I said, it's located in the larger state park of Cape Disappointment, which it like it it belonged to the federal government for a long time, and then just recently it has moved into a state ownership park thing. Um, and the area, both the water and like the coastline, is really fucking dangerous. Winds of over 100 miles an hour are like regularly recorded there.
And that's a lot of
That's a lot of
speed.
winds.
It's got
Um,
speed.
and and records reach to the 120-mile-an-hour range.
Wow.
Um,
That's not quite hurricane speed, but it's close
but
enough.
it's
Anything
bad,
above like
especially
15 is too much.
yeah, yeah. So and like on a regular basis, like this
Mhm.
is not a good place to be sailing.
No.
Over 2,000 ships have wrecked here since Cape Disappointment was a thing. I forget when the first lighthouse was built, but so it's been. Oh, here we go. It's right here. The first lighthouse that they built was built in 1856, but it was not effective. So Congress funded North Head Lighthouse $50,000 to combat these wrecks. Obviously, it like did not stop ships from wrecking because
Is it just the
it's still
wind or is there like are there also storms?
yeah, so it's the wind and also it's the currents.
Okay.
I yeah, there's a lot of like oceanography stuff that just makes it like a really dangerous place that I don't really understand. But it's currents and then there's fog and it's just really hard to see
I'm gonna have to look into
if
this.
for like when ships like run aground. Also, like the cliffs or sorry, the cliffs are just like super rocky and sharp. So yeah, it's just really easy for a ship to either get blown into the cliffs or to like accidentally run aground because they can't see through the fog like where the land is. Um and so like I'm not saying that this place isn't haunted because obviously with like 2,000 shipwrecks there's got to be a really high mortality rate.
If they weren't
Um
wrecked because of the hauntings, they are now haunting because of the wrecks.
exactly. It's just like building on itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the light at North Head was first lit in 1898, and it is still active today. Although it's been made automatic though, so like
Oh, okay.
the people don't have to be there, but it's still active, and I think that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
So with 2,000 shipwrecks, there's got to be a high mortality rate because lots of dead people who died traumatic and painful deaths away from home means lots of ghosts. Um, and then plus the currents and the oceanography of this land makes it so that bodies actually get sucked up onto the shore right below the lighthouse.
What?
Yeah.
That's
So like that's
terrifying.
another part of the
Oh
horror
my god,
story
it's
is
like,
just that
oh, we can no longer see the ship in the like lighthouse light beam. Well, we'll find them in a couple days, I guess, on the shore when they wash
and
up.
then yeah, when the bugs
Like,
watch it. God
what?
damn it. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I said to be a lighthouse keeper. Suddenly now I'm also a graveyard keeper.
Yeah, suddenly now it's my job to go drag bodies off the shore as well as
And not even like as a
save
lifeguard.
not even as a lifeguard. Also,
Like, you
a
can't
lot of
save their
people who like
lives.
worked at the lighthouse, they sometimes would get like blown off the side of the cliffs
Oh
and
no.
then be like hanging from the cliffs and
Hmm.
then have to rely on like the light keeper to go and rescue them. And it's just like one question I've been asking this entire research
How do you
journey
qualify
was
for
like,
this job?
why do people keep going here?
Well, that too.
Yeah, I'm just I get trade routes, I get that's at the mouth of the Columbia River.
But we're
That's
past that.
important. People gotta go and or I
We're
they
beyond that. We can
yeah,
go over it now.
yeah. Yeah, what was it? The last shipwreck was in 2005.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Too recent.
Um, Zach Zach captures the landscape beautifully with this sentence that he says. Um, I'm gonna try to do it in his voice. We can see how easy it is for ships to be attacked by these vicious waves.
Great impression.
I just like waves don't attack ships. Waves are just waves.
Waves
You
are
put
doing
the
their thing.
ship. I know.
You're in the way.
Oh my god. Um. Yeah. So with all this, there have been a lot of reports of figures seen climbing up the cliffs or like hanging from the cliffs and like coming on shore and stuff. So that's the first, like, pretty well known ghost story about North Head. And that's kind of all there is to that one story is that you just see ghosts on the cliffs. Now, the second a reasonable enough ghost story is about in North Head Lighthouse's first keepers, Mary and Alex Pessinen. And they worked there in 1998 when the lighthouse was first opened. Oh, I'm sorry, not 1988, 1898.
I was about to say, I was like, that's wait.
No,
Okay.
yeah. Um, so there's also not a lot of information about them. So, but the next factoid that is available is that in 1923, oh my god, the fucking construction. I keep thinking that someone's like pounding on my door.
Mm-hmm. Is Hollis home?
Yeah, yeah, they're
Okay.
home.
I
It's
was gonna
like
say, it's
not
worse if
them. It's
Hollis
like
wasn't home.
yeah, no, for sure, also. Um, sorry. So in 1923, Alex takes Mary to Portland because she's sick, and a doctor diagnoses her with melancholia that
Same.
spring, which is same, yeah, which is what they called like depression back in the Victorian and before era. Um, Then, so June of that same year, Mary goes for an early morning walk with her with, with their jog, with her dog Jerry.
Oh.
Yeah. But later that day, Jerry comes back home alone.
Oh.
Um, yeah, and so um, Alex, with the help of his peers at the lighthouse, look around for Mary just to try to find her. But they find that her body is at the bottom of a cliff where she had fallen off or seemed to slide down. Um, and
Okay.
her death is thought to be a suicide.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Um, it's not great.
I wouldn't be surprised if like what had actually happened was that it was foggy and she couldn't really see, like especially in the morning before like early morning fog
Yeah.
gets burned off or like blows away. Like if it's super
Hmm.
windy and she's like not really paying attention to where she's going, or like maybe the dog kind of ran forward and she's like chasing after the dog, making sure it's not falling off the cliff. She ends up at the cliff
Hmm.
herself. And then it's
Yeah.
like windy and she like gets blown over.
Yeah. Like there are just like a lot of things that could go wrong. Ghost Adventures, however, calls into question, was it her husband who murdered her?
Of course.
There's very little pause for that question, in my opinion. And again, I get the impression that they just really needed the story to be meatier for like their TV show versus to actually tell what happened. Um, but anyways, all the information that I could find on a Mary Pessman points towards suicide, in my non PhD opinion. Either suicide or an accident, as you said, because an accident could have been super easy. Mary had joined this movement called the Unity Movement along the way. I think it was a few years before she died, she joined this. And it's a Christian based religion that is mainly centered around faith healing. In my brief research of it, I found that Uni has roots in Christian Science, but that doesn't technically forbid modern medicine. However, the Unity movement at the time did claim that all illness is a matter of mind, and that you can heal yourself if you try hard enough.
Okay, on one hand, good. They agree that mental illness exists. On the other
Yeah.
hand, if you have cancer, and that's a physical
And they're
ailment.
saying the
It's
same
a
thing.
mental illness.
Yeah, yeah. So all of it is
Mm,
just the mental illness.
we've kind of they've made some progress, but also regressed quite a bit.
Yeah, the Mary like bought into this indie movement and faith healing. She's said to have gone off of her medication in the hopes that her faith would heal her, which and she wrote this down in a letter that she wrote the night before her death. And I cannot find a copy of that letter for the life of me. But on Ghost Adventures, Zach gets to hold like like a physical reproduction of the letter, and I'm just like, I should be able to see that, not
He's
Zach.
probably got a copy of it, like on the
I
internet that you
know,
can like
I
pay
know.
$10 million for.
Fuck, I was so fucking mad that he had it and he just read like some shitty ass quotes. And I'm like, I want this letter because I can actually do something with it that your dumb white man ass can't. So sorry. I'm really bitter about Zach right now.
It's okay. It's okay. We just gotta take a trip. Go
It
find it
got
for
it.
ourselves.
Oh yeah, yeah, in Cape. A disappointment. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we should take a road trip. Um, yeah, so like faith healing is pretty much a bad idea, especially when they like blame illness on you and your inability to mentally heal yourself. But like psychiatric treatment in the 1920s was also terrible. So I don't blame her at all for going with like a bunk religion instead of insulin shock therapy, for
Yeah.
instance.
So like you have three options at this point. You've
Yeah,
got faith healing, shock therapy, and cure-alls
cure all.
for
Yep.
something that like probably isn't the problem.
Yeah. We'll get like more into theories on Mary later. But her ghost is sometimes seen walking along the cliffs in the windows of the keeper's house, and I'm sure like in other places in the area. Um, but then, so those are the two hits that we get for North Head Lighthouse. That's kind of it. Zach does, quote unquote, get possessed by Mary's husband in the investigation, where he lashes out at everyone.
I mean, what does he have to do with anything?
Yeah. Well, so Zach tries to make the argument that that their relationship wasn't great because of
All
dark
right, Zach.
forces by indigenous people. Yeah. So it's just a whole thing. But Zach like desperately latches onto Mary's story for the entire episode, and he gets kind of sexist and ableist about two, as well as racist. But we'll get all that out later. So he decides to try to ratchet it up a bit by suggesting that, quote, many believe that Mary and her husband were affected by a dark force that led to her untimely death. Of note is that Zach says many, and yet of the four people he interviewed, none of them said anything about a dark force.
That's a real
and
kicker.
and his the qualities of the quality of his interviews for this episode were just so bad. He interviewed a psychic and then two white historians, and then a museum curator, and that's it.
This just sounds like Mulan,
The Mulan?
the Mulan movie. I can go into this for days, but all I will say is that
Okay.
they tried to make a more historically accurate Mulan. So they took out Mushu because it wasn't historically accurate. They picked
Got
a different.
Mushu?
They took out Mushu. The costumes that they made were based on a different time period, number one. Number two, based on costumes that they saw in European museums. And three, the director was white, costume designer was white, everyone on that fucking cast, like, everyone behind the camera was white. Is white. Is, like, literally the only people who were not white are in front of the camera. And the lead actress is against the Hong Kong protests. And she's, like,
Just a
actively spoken about it.
fucking mess.
it's a whole thing,
What?
and there's a lot going on, and like the I've seen a whole thread about it on Twitter. Like someone's like, I pirated it. Here's the facts, and they like live tweeted the entire movie, and it's just like, ooh,
Yeah,
there's so
I
many
mean that's
things.
not totally unlike like what Zach's doing, right? Like he's a white storyteller putting a spin on a story that does not belong to him and bringing in like okay, if I know that we don't have viewers, but if we were to have viewers, I am almost sure that some white person would be like, why are you making the story of this lighthouse about race?" I'm like, I'm not making it about race. Zach Bagans chose to be a racist asshat, so now it's my problem. Like, anyways. Okay, I think we left off where, oh yeah, Zach says that many people believe that there are dark forces here. You might be wondering, what is this dark force that Zack keeps referring to? Well, he seems to think that it's indigenous people, or a curse that they put on the land, or well, maybe it's just their spiritual energy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows? But
Okay.
but
Okay,
Zack
Zach.
says bagel bites can say dark curse and Native Americans in the same sentence, or in sentences near each other, and that's pretty much anyone on the show or their viewers need to know, I guess. Um, this is actually like a really common trope, of course. I'm sure that we talked about it before. The magical native trope.
Oh yes.
Um, yeah, basically, like the idea is that native people are somehow inherently connected to the earth and to spirituality in ways that civilized white people are not.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, that's very wrong. Also, especially in this context, it's just not it didn't take me that long and it wouldn't take anyone that long to find out how wrong he is. Give yeah. So the people that he's talking about and grouping together, the actual people who live in that region are now called the Chinook Nation, and they have had better things to do for the past 2 centuries than cast a dark curse or whatever Zach is talking about. In fact, it's not magical at all, but it's really quite real because the Chinook Nation has been fighting to stay alive, not to be a ghost, but to stay alive since 1805 when Lewis and Clark came over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem. That's one of the many problems here. Is
Indeed.
that it's like they're not like we'll get into it.
Okay.
Um, there are slash were no Indian ghosts creating dark energies, quote unquote, because the goal has always been to survive white people, not to die and then haunt white people. At least, I mean, I don't want to speak for anyone, but I'm guessing that no one's goal is to really be like a trope for white people to use to make their stories sound spooky.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Do you
who really
think?
knows like ghostly intent?
Yeah,
Does it
yeah,
always follow like your in life intent to not haunt something? Like, do you voluntarily haunt someplace?
yeah. Like, is your like soul just like tied to that place?
Mm-hmm.
You
Because
know,
like even if you're
I don't
not
know.
like, oh, I'm just gonna live my life and try to do my best to stay alive until I die. Like,
Hmm.
who's to say your ghost won't be like, or your spirit when your body is done, like just comes back and is like, actually,
Yeah, no, I like definitely think that some spirits can be anchored to a place and not want to be there or like never have intended to be there. But like the thing is I think in this case, like it's not even relevant because there's no evidence that there are indigenous spirits haunting this land. I'm trying to make the distinction between like Zach's whole idea of like the the like dead native spirits who are coming to haunt this land because of whatever vague reason that Zach puts forward. And instead, I'm trying to bring attention to the fact that like I don't know, indigenous people and the Chinook Nation have always been like a living people, like they're not dead.
I see.
I mean, like
Okay.
people have died, but not in the way of like like in the last of the Mohicans. Like even that title indicates that like it's over. Native people don't exist anymore in this
Right.
earthly sphere.
Right.
What I want to do now is take you through a timeline of the Chinook Nation's history with the U.S. government. It might seem like a little bit of an abrupt shift away from the lighthouse right now, but I want us to have some facts just like ironed out before we go into the false narrative that Zach is perpetuating. So
Okay.
basically, the Chinook people are very much alive right now and doing like I don't know, things that humans do instead of just being magical, so to speak. Um,
Okay.
the Chinook Indian Nation website has a pamphlet called The Chinook Indian Nation and the Federal Government 200 Years, which is very aptly titled. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's like one of the main sources that I've used for my entire basis of research, and it took me maybe 10 minutes to find. So, like, the idea that this is all specialized information that maybe Zach Bagans and Ghost Adventures didn't have access to, like, that's bullshit.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
would
when did
have
the
taken
episode air?
them.
When was this webpage made?
Oh, I mean, the
I'll give them
webpage
the benefit
has.
of the doubt. I don't. I'm not trying to make excuses for them.
No, no. I mean, at least since 2015.
Okay. I
I
feel like
don't
this page would
know.
have existed,
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
and
Um,
they just ignored it.
or like they didn't even think to look for it, I guess, is like what I'm thinking.
They probably stumbled across it, even if they weren't thinking to look for it, and they just ignored it.
Yeah, you think so? I mean, probably. I don't know why I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they
I
just
know.
didn't see it.
I just feel like this is something that like is so specific that if you Google it, their website, like the official Chinook Nation website, will come
Yeah,
up.
something other than Zach's makeup world would
Mm-hmm.
come up. Yeah, so Lewis and Clark arrived in the area 1805. In 1848, Oregon Territory officials tell the Chinook Indian Nation, hey, don't worry, we're not going to steal your lands. Um, 3 years later, in 1851, there are the Tansy Point treaties, which say that the Chinook can remain in their territory and that they'll get provisions and annuities. The next year, the treaties are read into congressional record, but they're not ratified
I was gonna say,
by
how long did they
Congress.
last?
Yeah, so the Chinook Nation signed them, but Congress never followed through with them.
Great.
Of
Cool.
course, super helpful. And then 1 year later, the U.S. government creates Washington State Territory. I think it's some sort of Washington Territory, and they artificially split the Chinookan people between the Columbia River. Um, then in 1855, the oh shit, Chalice, I think it's pronounced Chalice River Treaty negotiations are held. Governor Stevens of Oregon, I think, insists that the tribes relocate to a single reservation far north. The Chinookan people refuse, and he leaves the lands for then. But 9 years later, in 1864, the Secretary of the Interior takes all Chinookan territory in Southwest Washington, just like that, just like takes it.
Love that.
Um, yeah. Then in 1899 is the first year that Chinookan people seek damages from the U.S. Then takes us, the U.S., 13 years to make in annuity payments. which it's $26,308 for 762,000 acres of land. Um,
That's not enough.
that's not enough. Yeah, and it takes us 13 years to even make that payment. It takes us 58 or sorry, it takes 58 more years of the Chinook Nation fighting with the US before we award $75,000 minus the old stuff that the US awarded for a total of 48,000 $48,692, which equals 10 cents an acre.
Still not enough.
No, yeah. And and another part is that the people never got this money because
Not enough.
they weren't and aren't recognized as a federally recognized tribe. So they can't get the money because not federally recognized. Um
That's bullshit. That's some real
and
bullshit right there. Like,
get ready. In January 2001, the Chinook Indian Nation is finally recognized. And then the new Bush admin, sorry, then the new Bush administration reverses that decision. 16 months later, in July 2002.
I don't have anything for you.
Yeah. So, like, this exactly is why I was like, I can't ignore this because what Zach is doing is so fucking offensive to say that, like, these people don't exist and now in their afterlife, what they're doing with their afterlife is haunting us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, and assaulting of the past. It's like, no. Also, the fact that Congress in, what was it, the 1890s spent $50,000 on the North Head Lighthouse, but they couldn't spare that much or more for the Chinook people whose land they stole.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, so it's just really, really bad. In recent news, because the fight continues, in 2008, 2009, Washington Representative Brian Brian Bar Byard, yeah, Brian Byard introduces two bills that together are called the Chinook Restoration Act. The bills are sent through, but not acted upon by Congress. In 2015, the Chinook Tribal Council starts the Chinook Executive Recognition Justice Project, which is a letter a day to Obama um, for a whole year, seeking an executive order giving them federal recognition.
Did he sign one?
No,
Ah!
I know. Either he didn't sign one or he took too long to sign one. I don't know, but
I mean, there's
whatever
probably a
happened,
bunch of
it did
things across
not.
the desk that those 8 years, like,
I mean, yeah, but like, think about it. If he is getting a letter a day for a whole year from one source, like, he should. I don't know. I don't know. Um,
yeah, I don't.
I was researching it like super late at night, and I thought that I saw something like Obama at least like addresses the problem, but then today I remembered that and I couldn't find it again. So I don't know. Either way, the tribe today is still not recognized federally.
And at this rate,
Um,
it won't be for a long time.
yeah. There have been some good strides this year.
Okay.
Um, but first, insult to injury in 2016, Pacific County Public Utilities and District Number 2 dug in an area known to hold Chinook remains to repair something. So everyone knew, hey, this area, burial ground, like a very important archaeological site for a lot of reasons. and then they just dig through it.
Just want to punch someone. I don't
Yeah,
know who to punch,
I know.
but there's probably a whole list of people that I can just line up.
And punch. Yeah, yeah. Um, and then same year, 2016. I'll talk about this later, but a really, really good documentary. I haven't seen it because it's only on DVD, but
The struggle
I'm gonna
bus.
order it. I'm gonna order it, and it's gonna be great, and I'll let you know. But that was a documentary by and for Chinook and Duwamish people, and it was produced, and that's a big deal. Um, and then this year, January 19th, 2020, the Chinook Nation actually won a court battle that now allows them to reapply for federal recognition.
Wait,
Because,
okay.
yeah,
No, keep going, keep going, keep going.
the thing at first was that they applied for federal recognition,
Mm-hmm.
they were denied,
Mm-hmm.
and then they could not apply again.
Is that a law that you can only reply once, or is this because someone was like, please
Yeah,
don't?
I was trying to suss through all the legal reasonings and stuff, and I couldn't really understand it, but the gist was that they weren't allowed to apply again because of yada yada, like random
Because they
reason.
don't have enough people anymore?
No,
Is it like club
it's not
requirements? You have to have a certain number of people to be considered a nation
it's
when
not.
it's not their fault that they have less people to begin with?
I know.
I'm sorry.
I don't think it's even that. It's just like I just the U.S. government really does not want tribes to be sovereign because then that's a threat to us, supposedly. So I think they're going to make up whatever reason they are going to make up to keep tribes from becoming sovereign.
Okay.
I think that's really the meat here, unfortunately. So, but the Chinook Nation January won a court battle, and now at least like the road is open for federal recognition because they can reapply.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit, and
Mm-hmm.
I who knows
Who knows?
what's gonna happen now. So,
And now, re-election.
re-election, census. I'll like talk later about like census issues, but yeah, and just like yeah. But so I don't know how much you know about the federal what it means for a tribe to be federally recognized because I didn't really know at first.
I mean, I assume it has
Um,
something to do with, like, corporations can't just build on the land anymore.
yeah,
um,
it's like that. It's that there are more land protection rights, but like
no
what it
hunting or whatever
yeah
as well.
what it does like overall is it acknowledges that the tribe exists as a sovereign nation and it establishes a government to government relationship
Mm-hmm.
instead of a subject to government relationship. So
Yeah.
that means that the US has to interact with the tribe as they would interact with a nation
Then they
that's
get,
not
like,
their
an
own.
embassy.
Yeah,
I
an
guess.
embassy.
I don't know if, like, what the requirements for an embassy are, but
Yeah, I
I feel
know.
like that would mitigate some issues as far as, like, we have to come to your land and we need, like, a neutral territory
Yeah,
to talk about things that are a little bit sensitive, question mark.
yeah,
Diplomats can be involved instead of just like, we're coming, we're gonna take it, it's no longer yours.
yeah, basically. Federal recognition also means that the U.S.
Rights.
got
Oh my god.
what
Rights to keep land.
rights? What
Rights to keep land.
rights to keep land? Um, and it also means that the government is obligated um, to support them and make some amount of reparations. It means access to funding and services for healthcare, education, environmental protection, economic stability programs, like basically all the things that strengthen and sustains a nation's ability to thrive. So like it's a game changer for tribes to be able to be federally recognized because that means that the government has to say you exist as a sovereign nation, and then all the things that come with it.
I wonder how much that would affect deforestation.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, I I'd say that it probably
I'm trying to be
can't hurt.
optimistic here, but
Yeah. Um.
being able to preserve at least some of the like heavily forest land of Washington State
Yeah. Yeah.
under this sort of treaty nation deal
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
probably
A
help a
treaty
little
that was
bit.
already signed and that should have been held this entire time,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like it's asinine. I swear to God. Okay. So those are the facts, and note that that's just the history of like the fight for federal recognition. Like that's not all the Chinook people have been doing all these years. That's like just the timeline of the specific topic. Um, but do you want to hear what Zach thinks has been going on all these years?
Not really, but we're here now.
But I guess I wrote a bunch of notes, a bunch of angry notes. So yeah. Obviously Zach and the crew either didn't know any of what I just told you, or they didn't care. All Zach knows about the Chinook Nation is that they lived past tense in the area before white people came. And that is the basis of all of his claims, is that Native people lived here. So that
His
makes this
Ghost
land
Adventures episode is basically just
spiritual.
about a quote unquote ghost town. That it really isn't a ghost town. People
Yeah,
still live there. Like,
yeah, like, yeah, I mean, not a lot of
the
people
real
live
ghosts
at the
here are
lighthouse,
Zach
but
Baggins.
yeah, the real demonic presence is Zach
Yes.
Bagans. So he doesn't know shit, but still he has a lot of claims to make. Um, so I want to share some quotables that I transcribed from the episode. I'm gonna start with part of his interview with psychic Wendy Staten Phillips. And this is where Zach seems to find his traction for the whole curse theory. Um, okay, so basically he's like asking. Okay, wait. So she kind of feels like a lot of dark presence in the area. But like that can mean anything if you're a medium, like you sense ghost.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people died here. It's not going to be happy energy. But so this is what Wendy says. It was, I'm not positive what it was. It seemed very old. And Zach replies, what do you mean old? Like ancient? And then Wendy says, I'm not sure if it was a Native American set of spirits. Almost like people may have. Was this something they had misbehaved and a group of people took them down to deal with them at the edge of the cliff? I don't know. It was just very heavy and very emotional. And then Hugh playing stereotypical native drums soundtrack. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so like this whole time she's saying like I'm not sure, I don't know, but pretty sure it was Native Americans. And just like how do you sense a native spirit as opposed to any other racist spirit unless they explicitly tell you? She
Right.
didn't say she didn't say there's an indigenous person talking to me. She said it feels like a native spirit.
Yeah, I mean, like, you could, if they were talking to you, maybe, like, based on language. Like, not all go
Yeah,
speak English, but, like, if it's just you feel presence, that doesn't mean anything.
it means nothing. And then also she used the word misbehaved. And that just really rubbed me the wrong way.
Please explain to me what misbehave means. Does it mean
They had
not acting in a, like, Western white mannerisms? Like, culturally white? Like, considered quote unquote savage mannerisms that are just
I
basically
don't
because it's not like white civilized colon. I don't.
yeah,
You
like
know what I mean?
the
I'm just
yeah.
very frustrated that like people are trying to put things on things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then she says, a group of people took them down to deal with them at the edge of the cliff. Like, this language is just so dehumanizing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you doing? And then, of course, like, Zach keeps pushing her in this direction. He's like,
He's like
what do you mean
suggesting
by
things to her. Like, how are you
ancient?
supposed to interpret this if you're
I,
just listening to suggestions? You're not interpreting. You're just taking what he's suggesting and like putting it out in the world. It's like a given fact.
yeah. It's gross. It's gross. Yeah, and then so Zach continues on to confirm his own bias when he interviews the museum curator named Jeff Smith at the Maritime Museum. um, okay, so Zach asks, "What type of forces or spirits are in this waterway?" And then Jeff says, "I'm mainly thinking of the Native Americans."
Are you?
He continues to say, "They have strong beliefs in spirits, and who are we to question that?" And like, the way that they edit this is just really weird because they're making it seem like Jeff is saying that the native that indigenous people themselves are the dark forces. But I'm like, he's talking about their strong beliefs in spirits. So that could have been cut from any number of things. And like, it was a very obvious editing choice
Mm-hmm.
that like they portrayed it like this. Still, what he's saying isn't great, but I'm just and like, I, have you, like, there's just this level of vagueness that no one finds necessary to clarify because
Right.
it's like everyone knows, every white person knows what it means that there's cursed land. So why would you need to like actually explain your argument? Yeah, and of note is that during my entire research journey, I have now encountered one indigenous author who has ever talked about strong beliefs in spirits or being very spiritual. Every single indigenous indigenous author that I could find was talking about like either oppression or living real life as an indigenous person or like just like regular human things. Like no one was like, "Oh yeah, we're such a spiritual people." Like what the I yeah, so this is yeah.
I love it. I love it so much.
So then Zach gets one of his crew members. I don't even know what the fuck his name was. I like missed his name and I just don't care. So one of his crew members looked into the quote Native American lead more. In short, the crew member says the Chinook tribe has lived here for 2,500 years before settlers came. And then he says, quote, "They worship the land, they worship the animals, very spiritual. They believed everything was a gift from a higher power or the greater spirit. Things like that." End quote. And then he has a statistic where he said that there were 16,000 Chinook Indians, quote, Chinook Indians, in the 1790s, and only 30 to 40 left by 1830. Which, that last statistic is a straight up fucking lie. Like, no. 1830 is when the Chinook people were just getting started on like federal recognition actions. Like the Tansy Point treaties hadn't even happened yet. What the hell is he talking about? Saying that there's only 30 to 40 people left, right? And anyways, so then he explains that the number 3040 comes from accounting that a white person did on Cape Disappointment, where basically they just called for all the Chinook people to come to that location so that they can be counted. Does that
That's.
sound like a reliable way to determine how many people live in an area? Like,
Oh
no
man.
one probably very few people are gonna be like, oh yeah, let me just go and
Let me just take time
like
off from my day job
take
to
time
go
off from
get
my
counted, I
go get
guess.
counted by some white person so
Probably
that they can
lose my day job
probably
while I'm at it.
yeah, yeah, or
Jesus.
just like or I could literally get murdered if I go here. Well, like
Okay,
I,
yes, but no, like, okay, not only do I have to leave my day job to go get counted, leave my children at home to go get counted, also, I guess, bring my children if you want to count my children. Also, how am I going to get to this place that you want to count me at? Also, um, yeah, like, bring all of the people to one area, that's just a disaster waiting to happen.
exactly. And so there's still a lot of problems with like undercounting indigenous people in the census. One because of that exact reason. I was reading a Smithsonian article about how the 2020 census is gonna like massively fuck up the progress that we've already made in like actually counting indigenous people
Mm-hmm.
because there was a Scot or someone they interviewed said like, okay, if you're indigenous and you're persecuted by white people, why, if a federal agent comes to your house on a reservation, why would you ever tell them who you are and who lives there?
Yeah. Because, I
It's
mean,
like
that's
that.
just
It just
grounds for them to just kick you off whatever
yeah.
property you have. Like,
It's
because
like
you're not technically not allowed to be there.
and like why would you trust someone with that information who has like
Every single ounce of power to, like, make you even more disadvantaged.
yeah, and who has used that power to disadvantage your people every single chance the US government gets. And like again, I don't want to speak for anyone here. So let's debunk some bunk. So if we strip away all of Zach's theories and just look at the facts, it's a very different story. So one thing I've been thinking about over and over is how Cape Disappointment does not need to be haunted or cursed to explain everything that has happened here. Like, there are regularly winds in excess of 100 miles per hour. There's sharp rocky cliffs, treacherous currents, fog, storms, shallow waters. It's just a bad place to be sailing a ship. It's
Sounds like
almost
it.
like people keep dying at sea because people keep going there and doing risky things. It's like the geography and the ocean itself gives a pretty clear message of like, hey, don't take this route. It's not safe. Stay out of here. But like we just keep going there and like maybe the solution is to not go there and
Yeah.
prioritize resources for say the tribes whose land we stole instead of build another lighthouse that's not gonna solve the problem. So like is it that crazy to say like just stop going to Cape Disappointment? Like
I mean,
I
have you
don't
seen what's going on lately with masks?
I mean yeah, I guess I guess I mean like historically like it's why do you
I just
go
feel like
there?
historically, if you tell someone not to do something, they're gonna go do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, like, white people have a thing where they're like, don't tell me what to do. I can go get shipwrecked if I wanna.
It's
Um,
very redneck mentality.
yeah. Um, anyways, yeah, so I don't think Zach wants to admit that Cape Disappointment does not need to be haunted or cursed for everything to be happening. And as for Mary Pessinen, I also think that there's a much more likely explanation for her death than any oppressive spirit just like fucking with her life. Like she's a white woman coming out of the Victorian era, and her husband moves them to an extremely isolated, lonely, desolate region. Like we know how that is, right? To be trapped in a house. Imagine her trapped in the lighthouse with her husband and the crew, nowhere to go except on a walk and probably fall off a cliff. God. But she has depression and bought into faith healing, which actively tells her that she can cure herself if she tries hard enough. She's depressed, lonely, she commits suicide. It's like, it's, you don't need to.
I just feel like the two things that they're most seriously considering are suicide and her husband murdered her
Yeah, her
for
husband
some
murdered her,
reason.
or these dark energies ruined her mental health
They are
and
really
made
just considering
her,
everything except for the, like, I,
except for
that it might be an
like,
accident.
yeah, yeah,
Which is probably most likely what it was. I don't.
exactly.
There's a lot going
So
on here.
Zach and the crew really fixate on the letter that she wrote, and to try to figure out if it was really suicide, or if her husband murdered her, or if it was an accident. In her letter, she said something about needing to change, that she did something wrong, and like they're white men, so they don't understand internalized guilt, I guess, because they're like, what did she do wrong? Why
I
would
was
she
gonna say, like,
possibly
there's
say that?
so many
It
things.
must be a conspiracy that she did something wrong. What is this talking about? And I'm just like screaming at the screen, like, okay, depression, sexism, ableism, fake medicine. That's a lot of reasons to feel internalized guilt. Like, what is wrong with
Yeah,
you?
there's so many things that could go into
Um,
this. Like, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, and like, okay, so her
I'm
treatment
sorry that you're so
options.
privileged that you can't even fathom, like, the possibility that it might be something else.
Yeah, yeah. Also, like her treatment options at the time, what they would have told her to do. I researched this,
Mm-hmm.
and treatment options were exercise,
Okay.
music therapy, water immersion, psychoanalysis, lobotomy, enemas, diets, electroshock therapy, horseback riding, insulin shock therapy, opium or morphine, mercury treatment. Basically, anything that will sedate you, and then malaria therapy, where they intentionally infect you with malaria
What the fuck?
because somehow it's supposed to cure. I don't know.
Some of those sound legit, like opium slash
Yeah,
morphine. Like, I'll take that if it'll make me a little less melancholy. Like, I'll take that, sure.
yeah.
What was it in psychotherapy? Sure. Um,
Enemas? No.
enemas? No, thank you. What were the
Horseback
first ones?
riding? Horseback riding can be pleasant.
I'll
It can
take
be a nice
horseback riding, yeah.
activity.
Like, if anything, it'll make me more stable because I'll have a routine. I have to take care of this horse.
Exactly.
Like, maybe that'll
Like,
help. But, like, what were the first two
yeah.
things that you mentioned?
Exercise and music.
Okay, yeah, those two could also help.
Yeah. It's
Like,
like
legit help.
yeah, some of these are just common sense. Like, do pleasurable activities and
Hmm.
it'll make you feel better. Like, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But like lobotomy,
Electroshock and lobotomy, those need to just not exist.
also malaria therapy.
Also,
That
malaria
one
therapy.
shocked me. I
Yeah.
was like, what the hell? Um,
Phew.
okay, I'm trying to speed
Water
through
immersion.
this.
Is that like supposed to be like a womb simulation? Or is it like we're gonna drown you and see if you feel better?
Yeah, it's like we're gonna push you to drowning, to the
Yikes.
edge of drowning, to try to re. I forget. I read a thing on it, but it was like midnight, like two
No,
weeks
thank you.
ago. Um, so like it's not a question for me. Like these were the treatment options, even for a really wealthy white woman. Not great outcome.
No. I would definitely
So
take faith healing or whatever
yeah,
over
so it's
those.
like yeah, can Ghost Adventures not make it about making money off of people's pain for like 2 minutes? I don't know.
Hmm.
Um okay, and then so I wanted to address what's really at stake when Ghost Adventures pulls shit like that, because I'm like kind of at the end of my whole information dump. And so the thing specifically that like really lit a fire under my ass to like be like, okay, I can't just do this, is that Ghost Adventures has the potential to play a role in how like the folklore of this region develops, because almost all the articles that I read about North had before, or sorry, no, after 2008, when Ghost Adventures came, they refer to the episode and use the episode as the main source. And like it seems like the Ghost Adventures episode was like a big expose and like kind of got the lighthouse on the map.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So it reminds me of how when Ghost Adventures came to my hometown in Boise, Idaho, and they covered the Idaho State Penitentiary, and everyone was like super duper excited about it because it's like, wow, we're getting so much exposure, and like that's great, but that also means that like the Ghost Adventures, that their story is what gives a place recognition, and that their story is racist and full of lies, and that means that racism and lies are the story, because there's not like a lot of traffic of like legend and folklore coming in,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
Ghost Adventures is the dominant source. They have a responsibility there. I don't know. The other part is that Cape Disappointment is a state park, and also has this place called the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, which is like all about kind of the Oregon Trail and like settlers and all that stuff. I'm guessing it's not super up to date on indigenous justice
I
issues.
was gonna say, is it
I'm
like
just
a
gonna
majority of the
assume
museum, and
that.
then like there's a small little corner on like indigenous history?
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like. Also at stake is like a lot of people right now in COVID are traveling to state and national parks
Right.
during the pandemic. So it's very possible that the lighthouse might get like a lot of exposure, and then if Ghost Adventures and their racism is like the only story, then that's just going to perpetuate it so much more. Um,
It's like going like on a haunted tour, and it's like, oh, we're gonna go to this lighthouse, and it's just like it's not haunted the way you think it is.
yeah, yeah, or like, yeah, wait, and like a lot of white people aren't even getting questioned. Like if someone on a tour says, "Oh yeah, there's some dark native energy here," they're gonna be like, "Ooh," or I should say, we're gonna be like, "Ooh, there's some light too."
Yeah.
Anyways, um, and then another problem is that Ghost Adventures is not only taking away time and space from indigenous people and stories that really matter in this episode, but they're pushing racist bullshit that viewers will just take at face value. Like, I don't know, some easy improvements to this episode could have been they could have taken the 50-minute drive from Cape Disappointment up to the Chinook Indian tribe office in Bay Center, because it's like right there. Like, it's not a long drive to actually go and chat with the people who you're talking about in the
Right.
show. Like, and who actually knows the history of Cape Disappointment and any indigenous
It's actually
relationship
part of the
there.
history.
Yeah.
It's
They could have
wild.
spent 10 minutes on the official website and work that into what they're talking about. Um, and also, like, this isn't just about one episode of Ghost Adventures. Like, it's part of the whole white colonial narrative of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And, like, it's just, yeah. And, like, people are trying so hard to live and to stay alive, and then so to call them ancient and treat them like they're already dead is absolutely egregious. Um, One scholar who runs a blog, I think it's called In Native Appropriations, she says, "We are fighting every day for the protection of our sacred sites from being destroyed. If indigenous spirituality becomes conflated with fantasy magic, how can we expect lawmakers and the public to be allies in the protection of these spaces?" Um, so, yeah, and then the last thing that I want to say could also be a palate cleanser.
Okay. I'm here for
Okay,
it. I'm ready.
yeah. So, I just want to talk about some of the really cool things that the Chinook Nation is doing right now, and also a really good fucking book that I want to advertise. Um, so Promised Land is the documentary that I was talking about before. It was made in 2016 about the Duwamish and Chinook nations. Um, quote, as they fight for the restoration of treaty rights they've long been denied. In following their story, the film examines a larger problem in the way that the government and society still looks at tribal sovereignty. Buy it, watch it. It looks like a really good movie. Um, Unfortunately, it's not available for streaming, and but you can buy it on DVD,
Okay.
which I know is like not a lot of people have DVD players, but in most of I think so. What they did before COVID was you could schedule like showings of the documentary
Mm.
at places and at like organizations and stuff. So I think that was one of their main ways of getting it. But like I want to say stream the shitty Mulan remake all you want. Like pirate it. Do not pirate this film. Like if you're gonna watch it, buy it and
Mm-hmm.
support the filmmakers. Um, and then there's a book. It isn't specific to Chinook Nation, but it is a horror novel written by an indigenous author that uses the native curse trope. So it's like an actual native person. Like, um, some say that he's like reclaiming it for actually indigenous people, and it's called "The Only Good Indians" by
Okay.
Stephen Graham Jones. It looks really good. I just bought it on Audible and I'm really excited to
Hmm.
start listening to it. And the description is, quote, seemingly blending classic horror and a dramatic narrative with sharp social commentary. The Only Good Indians follows four American Indian men after a disturbing event from their youth that puts them in a desperate struggle for their lives. Tracked by an entity bent on revenge, these childhood friends are helpless as the culture and traditions they left behind catch up to them in a violent, vengeful way. So, seems pretty good. Last thing, opportunities to donate.
Ooh.
Um,
Okay.
the uh, the Chinook Nation official website has a GoFundMe to preserve Tansy Point Treaty Grounds. Right now, they have about 58,000 raised of their $88,330 goal. They also have a wish list of things that people could supply. Yeah, one of them was like if you have what was it like maple or cedar tree wood um, that they use to cook traditional fish dishes, like
Oh,
just
okay.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So like if you happen to have a lot of trees or be in the lumber industry and you want to donate some maple tree
Mm-hmm.
wood, do it. Um, and they also have more links to just like donate directly on their page. Um, Keep in mind that these are all things that they should already be getting from the U.S. government and that the U.S. is withholding. So, if anyone can donate time, money, and/or labor, we should fucking do it. Okay, and that's the end of my story.
Cool.
Yay!
I liked it.
I'm
I liked all
sorry it
the
was
information.
so
It
long.
was very long. It was a lot.
I also enjoyed your story. I love a good true crime episode that doesn't involve murder or hurting
I just
people.
feel kind of weird talking about like stuff like this though, because like I would love to get into the more gruesome stuff. Because I mean, our show's called the Horror Corner. Whoa.
Hmm.
What's horrifying about a bank heist? They may or may not have had a gun. They came out with tasers. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Well, folks, those are our stories for this week. Thank you so much for sticking with us through this very long episode, specifically my very long story. Um, yeah. I got. We will see you next week. My name is Elle.
I'm Cody. And until next time, you can find us on Twitter at Horror Corner Podcast, on Patreon at Horror Corner Podcast, pretty much everywhere Horror Corner Podcast. Elle's got some pretty cool posts up on Instagram right now you can check out for yourself.
Ooh.
Subscribe to us here on YouTube, where you can find all of our episodes. I am in the process of getting us back up onto other streaming platforms, and that's all the places you can find us on the internet.
Thanks so much for listening. All right, we'll see you soon. Bye.